Hi, today I want to talk to you about the Alene's OK to Wash It glue. It's a permanent glue and it dries clear and stays soft. And I've been using it for many years, so I really like the way it works. The other thing I wanted to show you is that in my sewing box, I keep one of these little tiny half-dram bottles and I fill it with my Alene's OK to Wash It. You can just squeeze it in there. This will help keep this bottle from drying out because they do have a tendency to dry out, and that's why I like the 2-ounce size. I think in your craft stores you have a 4 and a 6-ounce size, and they dry out very fast when you're opening them all the time. So this is my hand sewing box, and in here I keep everything that I need when I'm sewing. And when I'm ready to stitch, then I have all the colors that I need, my scissors, my thimble, my threads, and of course my Alene's. Now the Alene's is permanent glue, and I need to get this started. I'm going to put a knot in my piece, and I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to show you how I use this. Now on my leaves here, when I was prepping them in these little tiny concave areas, I had, see if I can zoom in a little in. There we go. I had prepped these areas. I was using the fray block that I showed you before. Now you can also notice that when I used my Roxanne's glue base to baste everything down, I did not put basting glue inside these little concaves because I knew that I wanted to do something to that concave when I got to that point in my stitching. So I'm just going to start stitching. I'm just going to sneak over here and start stitching, and I always do start with my knot buried underneath my piece, just like this. Now I usually wouldn't start right here at this curve, but that's just because I want to show you how to use this. So I would have been stitching along until I got right here, and I would say this is where I made my clips when I was prepping my piece. So I know this is where I start to have very little seam allowance in here. So I will come with my Alene's OK to Wash It. It's another time when you need 3 hands. And then the first thing I do is I will come either with my needle, or I use, this is just a dowel that I've sharpened and I can just use it when I'm stitching. And then I'll come with my Alene's, and I just want to get enough on the tip of my needle. You can see there's very little on there. And what I'm going to do again is I'm going to make sure my piece is lifted off so that I can carefully place my needle underneath here and rub my glue right along that seam allowance. I'm going to pinch that. I wiped off some of the glue, and now I'm going to continue to stitch like I normally would. When I stitch, the glue is going to dry, and it dries very quickly, and you can take your nice little tiny stitches like you normally would in this area. But what's going to happen when this dries, it will bond the top applique shape to the background and capture the thread in that area all at the same time, making for a nice bond on all your concaves. Now, when I'm working, I would never get all of these damp with the glue. You want to work on them one at a time because that little tiny bit of glue dries very quickly. So only work on these when you approach a concave. The other thing I wanted to show you about working with the Alene's is this is a rayon thread. And the rayon threads are wiry, and as you can see on my piece, they actually fray. I don't know if you can actually see this. One of these days I will get this correct. And you can see that this piece is already starting to fray. This is an older piece that I was working on. And so at the time I wasn't using the Alene's. So I'm just making a knot in the end of this rayon. And I made one knot. And this is a wool piece that I've been working on. It's a Spargo piece, and I love to work on wool. It's a lot easier than my applique. So I'm going to get some of the glue right on the knot, and then I usually go out to the tail, and then I can just trim this. And once that's dry, we're ready to stitch. But on the leading end, I also put the Alenes. Now, I took quite a bit out this time with my large needle, and this is the leading end that goes through the eye of our needle. I'm going to put the glue directly on the end, and as I'm doing this, I'm also pinching the thread. So this dries very, very quickly, and it will be nice and flat here in a second. And I can dry, and it's flat, and it's very easy to thread your needle because I've flattened out the end of that piece, so it just makes it easy, especially when you're working with some of these very thick threads. Now I'm just going to come over here. We would pretend that maybe I started over here somewhere, and I would have ended, and now I'm ready to make my here we are. I'm ready to finish off my piece. I would have come up from the front side, and I would have now decided that it was time for me to tie off. Well, when I tie these off, if my stitch is very big, I will take a little bit of a stitch into my wool background. But basically, I'm trying to weave my thread, and if these weren't such big blanket stitches, I would have been able to not take a double stitch in here. Normally, like with my embroidery, you have smaller stitches. On regular embroidery, I would just be able to go in each stitch until I had this woven in for about a ½ inch. Once I've done that, then I will come back with my glue, and I'm going to hold this up, and I will apply my Alenes directly onto the thread where I wove it in. I'll wipe off your needle so it's ready for you the next time. You're going to cut this off, and then you're ready to stitch. So those are my tips about working with the Alenes. And then of course we now have these little tiny bottles on our website that you can purchase. They just make it really easy to keep with your stitching. Thank you.